What if the most mind-bending scenes in science fiction were not computer-generated at all, but born from sweat danger and mechanical genius? In the age before digital trickery, filmmakers risked everything to make the impossible feel real. Explosions were physical, aliens were sculpted by hand, and the future was made from smoke and steel. Welcome extreme retro sci-fi moments that practical effects made possible. The Thing, 1982. When John Carpenter unleashed The Thing, audiences were not prepared. Critics called it repulsive, nihilistic, and cold. Yet beneath the frost and gore lay one of the most astonishing achievements in practical effects ever filmed. Set in a frozen Antarctic base, the story follows scientists discovering an alien organism that can imitate any living being. What made it unforgettable was not the plot, but the flesh-twisting transformations that defied logic. Rob Bottin, the 22-year-old effects prodigy behind the madness, worked himself into exhaustion, creating every gruesome detail with foam latex and mechanical rigs. Tentacles burst from bodies using hydraulic pressure. Severed heads grew spider legs made from radio-controlled puppetry. Everything you saw existed right there on the set, under the burning lights of Universal Studios. The crew often gagged during takes. One scene was so vile that even Carpenter looked away. The controversy hit hard. The film was condemned as excessive. Universal panicked after disastrous test screenings, and critics tore it apart, calling it a betrayal of the imagination. But decades later, The Thing rose from the ice to be hailed as a masterpiece. Every pulsating effect remains unmatched. It proved terror is more potent when it feels alive, and the monster is made of flesh, not pixels. 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968. Stanley Kubrick promised nothing less than the most realistic vision of space ever captured. In 1968, he delivered something so convincing that even NASA engineers wondered how he did it. 2001, A Space Odyssey was hailed as both a triumph and a riddle. Its slow, poetic structure masked a symphony of practical wizardry that defined the genre for generations. Douglas Trumbull, the visual effects supervisor, built entire orbital stations as rotating miniatures. Astronauts walking in zero gravity were achieved by mounting actors inside rotating centrifuge sets, built by aircraft engineers. Instead of digital stars, Kubrick photographed pinpoint lights through glass plates, one exposure at a time. The result was hypnotic and frighteningly real. When the famous Stargate sequence melted into color madness, it was not digital trickery, but slit-scan photography achieved by moving lights across film frames for hours on end. Yet not everyone understood. Critics were divided, some calling it slow or pretentious, while others swore they had seen the future. Religious groups accused Kubrick of playing God. Rumors spread that NASA had hired him to fake the moon landing. Kubrick never commented, which only deepened the mystery. Half a century later, 2001 still feels untouched by time. Its mechanical precision and handcrafted space illusions remind us that imagination does not need computers, only obsession and courage. Alien, 1979. Ridley Scott's Alien was born from nightmare and steel. When it arrived in 1979, critics called it both terrifying and beautiful. The film turned claustrophobia into art and introduced a creature so real that many viewers fled theaters in panic. The secret was Swiss artist H.R. Giger's biomechanical vision, realized entirely through practical craft. The creature's design combined molded rubber translucent tubing and industrial components that gave it an inhuman texture. Inside the alien suit was Bolaji Badejo, a tall Nigerian art student who endured suffocating heat while mimicking non-human movement guided by Scott's direction. For the iconic chest-burster scene, the crew hid blood hoses beneath the set floor, spraying the cast unexpectedly to capture genuine horror. The scream of Veronica Cartwright was not acting, it was shock. Censors debated banning the film. Religious groups condemned its grotesque birth imagery, and some theaters refused to screen it at midnight, fearing riots. Yet Alien thrived on controversy. The studio doubled down using the fear as free publicity. Behind the scenes, technicians worked endless nights animating eggs with air bladders and hand puppets, while real smoke and acid effects ate through miniature decks. Every sound, the hiss of steam, the drip of slime, came from real liquid and metal. Today, Alien stands as the gold standard for practical sci-fi terror. It reminds us that the scariest creatures are not pixels on a screen, but handmade nightmares breathing in the dark. Number 8. Metropolis, 1927. Long before spaceships and androids became icons, Fritz Lang created Metropolis, a film so monumental that it nearly destroyed its own studio. Released in 1927, it was a vision of a mechanized city, powered by the suffering of workers beneath its streets. The movie's towering cityscapes and Robot Maria are among the most astonishing achievements of early practical science fiction. Lang used miniatures mirrors and multiple exposures to create the illusion of skyscrapers and traffic highways miles high. The Schuftan process, named after cinematographer Eugen Schuftan, involved placing mirrors at angles to blend real actors into model sets seamlessly. The technique was decades ahead of its time and paved the way for modern visual effects. Production costs spiraled out of control. The film bankrupted Germany's UFA studio, and censors across Europe demanded cuts, fearing its political message about class revolution. Some versions were destroyed, others censored beyond recognition. For years, Metropolis existed only in fragments. Then, in 2008, a nearly complete print was discovered in Argentina, restoring lost sequences thought gone forever. Today, Metropolis is revered as the birth of cinematic science fiction. Every shot still feels alive with danger because everything you see was real metal glass and electricity. It reminds us that imagination was once built, not rendered. Star Wars, 1977. Before digital galaxies. George Lucas dared to create one with glue paint and light. When Star Wars premiered in 1977, it looked so real that audiences thought they were watching actual space combat. Behind the spectacle was Industrial Light and Magic, a group of engineers who rewrote the laws of visual storytelling. The space battles were shot using motion control cameras invented for the film. Models of X-Wings and TIE fighters moved across black backgrounds on precision tracks controlled by computers recording multiple exposures to layer lasers, explosions, and debris. Each explosion was a miniature charge set off against backdrops painted by hand. The Millennium Falcon itself was built in sections with rotating panels to simulate flight. Lucas faced disbelief. Fox executives feared disaster, calling it childish nonsense. The studio demanded edits and questioned the cost of effects. Technicians worked around the clock welding models and filming with live sparks and real smoke. When the film finally hit theaters, lines formed for miles. Star Wars did not just revive science fiction, it transformed it. Yet its magic came not from machines, but from the craftsmanship of artists who touched every starship with their hands. Even today, when digital galaxies abound, the tactile heart of Star Wars remains unmatched proof that the future was once made of dust and courage. The Abyss, 1989. James Cameron's The Abyss was supposed to be an underwater miracle. What it became was one of the most grueling physical productions in Hollywood history. Released in 1989, it followed deep-sea oil workers who discover an alien life form at the bottom of the ocean. The film's beauty lay in its realism. Every drop of water, every shimmer of light was real. Instead of relying on visual tricks, Cameron built two gigantic underwater tanks, one holding 7 million gallons of water. Actors performed while submerged for hours wearing heavy suits and oxygen masks. Communication was nearly impossible, and claustrophobia took over. Ed Harris later confessed that the experience nearly broke him. Crew members fainted under pressure, literally and emotionally. The alien water tentacle that mimicked human faces was one of the first uses of digital imagery, but everything around it, from the flooding corridors to the collapsing structures, was practical. Miniature submarines moved through real water currents filmed at slow speed to create scale. Lighting effects were achieved by bouncing beams through mirrors and colored gels to simulate bioluminescent creatures. The production went so far over budget that the studio considered shutting it down. Rumors spread of fights on set and near drownings. Yet when it finally surfaced, The Abyss was hailed as an experience unlike any other. Critics called it exhausting, but visionary. Over time, The Abyss became a cult favorite, not for its story, but for its unrelenting authenticity. Every frame pulses with human effort and risk. It remains a testament to a time when filmmakers literally went underwater to find other worlds, reminding us that wonder comes from courage, not code. RoboCop, 1987. Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop was sold as a futuristic action film, but what emerged was a violent mirror of human decay made possible by practical genius. Released in 1987, it followed a murdered police officer resurrected as a cyborg enforcer in a city collapsing under greed. What made it unforgettable were its tactile effects that blended horror with satire. The RoboCop suit itself weighed over 80 pounds. Actor Peter Weller trained with a mime coach to move with robotic precision under suffocating heat. Special effects supervisor Rob Bottin built mechanical limbs, hydraulic pistons, and detachable armor by hand. The result was not a costume, but a living machine. The film's infamous ED-209 malfunction scene was created through miniature stop-motion animation. Every movement of the robot was hand-posed frame by frame. Gunfire bursts were achieved with squibs embedded in foam walls triggered by remote. The grotesque melting man sequence used layers of gelatin and chemical reaction to make human skin appear to liquefy in real time. Censors went to war with the studio, demanding over a dozen cuts before release. Some nations banned it outright, calling it sadistic. Verhoeven refused to apologize, saying violence was part of the message. The studio feared a financial disaster, yet audiences responded with awe. They saw not blood, but craftsmanship, raw and unapologetic. Decades later, RoboCop's blend of satire and handmade horror still shocks and inspires. Its mechanical grit feels more alive than modern replicas. It proved that even in a cynical future, humanity bleeds through metal and latex. Jurassic Park, 1993. Before Jurassic Park roared onto screens, dinosaurs had been clay puppets and matte paintings. Then Steven Spielberg changed cinema forever, using a seamless fusion of animatronics and limited computer work. When it premiered in 1993, people gasped because the creatures looked alive and they were largely real. Stan Winston's team built full-sized robotic dinosaurs, each controlled by dozens of hydraulic pistons. The T-Rex weighed over 9 tons and could move its head with terrifying precision. Every blink, every breath was timed by puppeteers operating from hidden rigs. The Triceratops scene was filmed with a massive animatronic operated by 8 technicians beneath the frame. During one night shoot, a rainstorm short-circuited the T-Rex controls, causing the machine to twitch uncontrollably between takes. Crew members screamed as the dinosaur jerked to life. Spielberg kept filming the chaos, using it for realism. The blend of real scale and limited computer enhancement created a tactile illusion unmatched to this day. Censors debated its intensity for young audiences. Religious groups objected to its portrayal of genetic manipulation. Yet Jurassic Park conquered the world. It proved that when imagination meets engineering, the impossible breathes. Even now, the film's mechanical dinosaurs feel more alive than their digital descendants. Every scale was sculpted by hand, every roar recorded from real animal sounds. Jurassic Park remains a monument to practical effects triumph, reminding us that true cinematic magic happens not in computers, but in the dirt, wind, and rain of reality itself. The Empire Strikes Back, 1980. When The Empire Strikes Back arrived in 1980, it was hailed as a darker, grander evolution of Star Wars. Yet behind the spectacle lay an extraordinary storm of engineering that nearly crushed its creators. The film's practical effects were a blend of artistry and endurance, a cold dance of steel light and sweat that defined cinematic science fiction for generations. The icy planet Hoth was filmed not in a studio, but in the brutal snows of Finse, Norway. Cast and crew braved real blizzards to capture authenticity. When Mark Hamill staggered into the freezing night during the opening scene, he was truly walking into sub-zero winds. For the epic battle sequences, Industrial Light and Magic built detailed miniature AT-AT walkers animated through painstaking stop-motion, one frame at a time. Each walker stood over 4 feet tall, crafted from resin and metal. Motion control cameras moved through miniature snowfields to mimic large-scale combat. Explosions were real detonations of powder and gasoline triggered remotely. Every falling speeder was a small model filmed at high speed to exaggerate weight. Cloud City was another marvel. Matte paintings blended with models using optical compositing so seamless that even experts struggled to find the join. The carbon freeze chamber sequence used beams of colored light and smoke machines to create a surreal metallic mist that digital artists still study today. Controversy arose over cost overruns and delays. The studio feared ruin while Lucas mortgaged his fortune to finish. Critics were divided, at first calling it too bleak, too slow. But time reversed their judgment. The Empire Strikes Back became the benchmark of practical world-building of film where every beam, every breath, felt tangible. Its legacy reminds us that dreams are born from freezing fingers and human persistence, not code or shortcuts. The Fly, 1986. David Cronenberg's The Fly redefined body horror through practical metamorphosis. Released in 1986, it told the story of scientist Seth Brundle, who fuses with a fly in a teleportation experiment gone wrong. What followed was not just terror, but an astonishing showcase of effects artistry that turned flesh into theater. Chris Wallace designed 7 stages of Brundle's transformation, each more grotesque than the last. Foam latex prosthetics layered over Jeff Goldblum's body were applied for up to 5 hours daily. Animatronic limbs extended and twitched using cables and servos hidden beneath the set. Real animal fluids were used to mimic decay, while the sound team recorded the squelch of fruit and meat for realism. Censors almost banned the film for its intensity. Audiences fainted during screenings, yet beneath the horror was tragedy. Cronenberg insisted the story was about disease and human frailty, not monsters. The infamous arm wrestling scene used a hydraulic prop bone that snapped through synthetic flesh to make audiences recoil. The final transformation, a fusion of man and insect, was a full animatronic puppet requiring 12 operators to control eyes, mouth, and limbs simultaneously. Behind the scenes, Goldblum performed through layers of makeup, his voice cracking with emotion even as his face vanished beneath latex. The production pushed every department to exhaustion. Still, when it premiered, critics recognized genius. The Fly won an Academy Award for makeup, but its deeper victory was artistic. It proved that terror can carry sorrow, that practical effects can make pain almost poetic. Today, The Fly stands as both nightmare and elegy. It reminds viewers that the human body itself can be the most fragile machine ever built, and that transformation done by hand feels more tragic than any digital dissolve. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, 1991. When Terminator 2 Judgment Day exploded into theaters, it was praised for pioneering digital effects, but its real soul lay in physical craftsmanship. James Cameron's vision of man versus machine was grounded in mechanical precision and fire. Released in 1991, it combined animatronics, pyrotechnics, and model destruction at a level no one had attempted before. Stan Winston's team built multiple full-scale Terminator endoskeletons, each made of steel resin and hydraulic joints. Arnold Schwarzenegger trained to move like a machine, memorizing exact mechanical motions between cuts. For the chase scenes, miniature trucks crashed through scaled highways, filmed at high speed to simulate impact. When the T-800's face split open, exposing the robotic skull, it was not CGI, but an animatronic head operated by cables and remote servos. The liquid metal T-1000 was partly digital, but many shots were practical. Robert Patrick's morphing wounds were achieved with layered prosthetics filmed in reverse motion. The scene where the Terminator cuts open his arm to reveal machinery used a lifelike replica operated by technicians just out of frame. Explosions on the Los Angeles freeway were real. Vehicles were destroyed in single takes, costing hundreds of thousands for seconds of footage. Controversy surrounded its violence and cost. The studio feared bankruptcy, but Cameron refused compromise. The film became a massive success and redefined action cinema. Critics hailed it as both thrilling and deeply human. The bond between man and machine, forged through real fire and steel, resonated around the world. More than 30 years later, Terminator 2 remains the ultimate fusion of muscle and metal, a reminder that real danger looks better than safe simulation. It proved that cinema's greatest illusions are built with hands that dare to touch the flame. Before pixels conquered imagination, these pioneers built futures from smoke glass and courage. They bled for beauty and froze for truth. Their machines breathed their monsters, bled their worlds, felt alive. So next time you watch a spectacle, ask yourself what price was paid for wonder. Like, subscribe, and share the legacy of real movie magic.